Is the economy getting better? Is it getting worse? And what should the government do to spur the economy? Is there anything you have in mind specifically other than extending the tax cuts? Is more spending by the government or less spending? Any ideas? People are very desperate, and
That's how I should have asked the question. How would you do it, but not with tax cuts?
Right, it's something different.
Other ideas.
Because I think everybody's starting to agree that those tax cuts are going to be extended, even if the president doesn't want them temporarily, at least 1 or 2 years. But is there something else that the government can do, being the big government that it is, to encourage business, to encourage job creation, other than just spend more money? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at you. I apologize.
Who are you?
Mr. Connolly.
Mr. Connolly.
You're the incumbent.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to answer. Well, my opponent opposed and would have voted no on the Recovery and Reinvestment Bill. I think the Recovery and Reinvestment Bill, as do most economists, saved the economy from going off a cliff and becoming a Great Depression. But it wasn't. That stimulus helped to stabilize things, so we're not shedding 750.
So what would you do now?
But I believe that moving forward, I talked about credit for small businesses. I think that's really important. I think providing a climate of predictability and certainty with respect to taxes is very important for the next 1 or 2 years until that GDP growth rate improves. Jobs are stubborn in any recovery, and this is the worst recession in 80 years, so this one's steeper than most. I think we have to try to provide incentives to the private sector. That's why I supported the HIRE Act, for example, that actually gives an incentive, a tax incentive, to businesses that create new jobs, small businesses that create new jobs. So we've got to provide that environment. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a matter of slow recovery and consumer confidence returning to the marketplace.
Mr. Gates, the Secretary of Defense, is going to cut a lot of defense spending, but so that might be more jobs lost in Northern Virginia. Mr. Fimian, what about that? What else can be done other than ensuring that the tax cuts stay in place?
Well, look, what Mr. Connolly just said is he doesn't know what to do. What I would do is I'd cut cap gains taxes on startups for 5 years by at least telling the investment community that you're eliminating these taxes. You change the risk profile of every investment in America in your favor. And
capital gains, what is it, 15% now?
It's 15, but Tom, the question is whether or not it's going to go to 25 or 30 or more. The point is, if you take this known cost off the table at the end of the investment horizon, it changes the risk profile of every investment in America, and venture money would pour into the markets because that known cost is gone.
Does that fall under your category of tax cuts?
I think yes. The capital gains. If it went below, would you like it below 15, or you just want to keep it at 15 as opposed to 25 or 30?
On startups, I'd make it 0, but keep it at 15 for everything else because people are standing on the sidelines right now. My company's a great example. There's a really good opportunity that we'd like to do. We've beta tested in 2 markets nationwide, but it demands me borrowing a 7-figure sum, and I've told my senior team I'm not doing it because I can't afford for the bank a year from now to pull up and say thanks for the memories.
I'm sorry, did I hear you say the capital gains tax should be 0?
On startups.
On startups.
Startups. That's how you would get venture money pouring into the market.
I might start a startup if it were 0.
Tom, can I just add one more thing?
Listen, if I could finish answering the question, I would also cut federal unemployment taxes until employment got down to 5%.
Is there any way to stimulate the economy other than tax cuts?
Yes, I got one.
Well, listen, let's hear from Mr. Connolly in a second, but the idea of stimulating the economy, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not as though the tax cuts aren't more than made up because by cutting, spending is the problem, but by cutting taxes and getting the economy to explode, you generate far more in tax receipts on the growing economy than you would have lost by making the tax cuts. So my point is, you got to grow the pie. We need people in Congress who understand this and can do this. I'm one of them.
One of the things I would do in the next Congress, and certainly avidly support, and that is the reauthorizing the transportation bill. This is a 6-year bill that provides a steady stream of investment in infrastructure. It is a regular bill.
Something Northern Virginia certainly needs.
Absolutely, and it would make a big difference. Not all spending, see, my opponent sort of has this mindless approach to spending. Not all spending is the same. Infrastructure investments have huge returns on them. They create jobs, but they're the gift that keeps on giving in terms of spurring other economic activity, creating jobs. and enhancing a local economy. And I think we need to get that bill done into the president's desk in the next Congress.
Again, my opponent doesn't know what he's talking about. The fact is, Kojo, that he has voted for spending that is so great, that is so massive, that it actually threatens our children, and it threatens economic investment. Again, companies are sitting on the sidelines with 30% more cash today than they had 2 years ago. They're not going to invest it while the economic climate is this uncertain. And who knows what the deficit's going to be next year and the year after. All we know is it's going to be terrible.
But those companies are not responsible for building the nation's infrastructure. They may participate in it if they choose to do so, but the government is responsible for making sure that we have an infrastructure that keeps our citizens safe, and that is an infrastructure that will last into the future. Some people are saying this is the opportunity to build more
now, that's
green
true,
infrastructure.
but the shovel-ready projects we talked about have not happened. They have not materialized.
Excuse
a
me,
very
Kojo.
small percentage of the dollars that have been allocated have been spent on these projects because the lead time is so great.
Oh, time out here, Kojo. On the recovery bill alone, $61 million completed the Fairfax County Parkway. I cut the ribbon to open it a few weeks ago. It's done. Advanced a couple of $100 million to get Metro to Dulles Airport. It's under construction as we speak. Widening the Prince William County Parkway, done. Adding locomotives to the Virginia Railway Express, done. So it adds capacity and improves on-time performance for our hard-pressed commuters. There are myriad projects in my district
Got to go
that have
back to
benefited.
the phones. Here's Angelica in Woodbridge, Virginia. Angelica, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you, Kojo. My question is actually for Mr. Fimian. In the past, you said that a woman who is raped should be forced to carry the rapist's baby to full term. I personally find this very immoral and insensitive, but I wanted to get a comment from you on that.
Listen, I don't want to force anyone to do anything. I'm pro-life. It's what I believe. And I think every life is precious. And my heart goes out to any woman who has suffered this very difficult decision. But that doesn't make me an extremist, as Mr. Connolly would suggest. It simply
sorry, I
means,
don't understand the answer.
It simply means I'm not going to change my position. I'm 100% pro-life. I'm not going to change my position because I'm running for Congress. That's the kind of thing a career politician like Connolly would do.
I wanted to be clear. The answer I wasn't clear. So if a woman were to be raped and became pregnant, she would be required to carry to term?
No, listen. I'm not asking anyone to require anything. I'm not running for Supreme Court justice, Tom. I'm not here to change the law. I'm simply saying that I am pro-life, and if one of my daughters were raped, God forbid, I would urge her to carry the baby to term, my grandchild to term, as difficult as it would be, recognizing that this innocent life had nothing to do with the crime perpetrated. But listen, if abortion is your issue, Mr. Connolly is your guy. But if you want to fix this economy, if you want to grow this economy, create jobs, get out of the mess we're in, and it is now dangerous, I'm the guy. I'm the man to do it. Jerry Connolly is not.
Wait a minute.
He's never created a job in his life.
Wait a minute. I want to address this. I think it is incredibly inhumane to say to a woman who's suffering from the trauma of having been raped, or a young girl from rape or incest, that if you had your druthers and you could vote on it because of your pro-life commitment across the board, you would force her essentially to carry that baby to term because you'd make it illegal for her to have any other choice. I think that is wrong morally, and I absolutely would allow a woman or a young girl faced with one of those two situations absolutely to have a choice available.
Moving on, I got an email this morning from Mike Panetta. He is the Shadow House representative of the District of Columbia, and the email said 2 words, Chairman Chaffetz, referring, of course, to Representative Jason Chaffetz of Utah, currently the ranking Republican on the Subcommittee on Federal Workforce, Postal Service, and the District of Columbia. The City Paper had a piece saying that if Jason Chaffetz becomes chairman of that committee, he thinks D.C. autonomy is unconstitutional. He wants to roll back gay marriage. He'd like to turn Washington into part of Maryland. If, in fact, the Republicans take control, are those things that you would support, Keith Fimian, specifically rolling back gay marriage in the District of Columbia?
I'd want to hear the arguments on both sides of that issue, Kojo. I've not heard them because I've been running for Congress the last year and a half, quite frankly. And that issue is very meaningful to people down here. but there are issues that are as passionately made on the other side.
How about voting rights for the district? Jerry Connolly's predecessor, Tom Davis,
listen, I'm open to that,
was one
but
of the big
again,
movers of that
I want to
legislation.
understand the issues on both sides, because our Constitution does not do that, for whatever reasons the founders had, who I have great regard for. But I'm willing to listen to the arguments on both sides of the issue and get up to speed to understand what people on both sides think. But I can tell you this, in my district, this issue has not come up at all. Zero, zilch. People are worried about the economy and jobs and spending.
Not true. We had a debate in front of hundreds of people just last week before the Jewish Community Center, attended by that other guy on the other radio station, so he's a witness. And my opponent flat out said the Constitution doesn't allow for it, and if they don't like it, they can move. That's a direct quote, and it's on videotape.
Well, you only have about 20 seconds left before each of you is allowed a 1 minute
Well,
closing
is that true?
statement.
Did you say if we those of us who live in the city want voting rights, we have to move?
Well, listen, again, the founders chose to,
I'm sorry, did
to
you
start
say
the
it, sir?
company this way.
I don't know. Did you say? I mean, he says you said you can move if you don't like it. I don't know if you said that or not. So
I don't remember saying it, and Connolly has put words in my mouth before.
No,
but
I'm
We've
afraid
got it
we are
videotaped.
out of time,
It's
and nobody
typical.
can put more words in anybody's mouth because you each have 1 minute to express your own words about why you should be voted for. First, you, Jerry Connolly.
Coach, thank you for having us on your show. I have been serving my community through civic engagement and in political life for a number of years now, delivering results. Like my Republican predecessor in this job, I am of the party of getting results and pragmatic results for our citizens. I want to keep that tradition going. I have worked hard in my time in public life, and I'd like to continue serving the citizens I've worked so hard to serve in my 16 years in public life.
And now you, Keith Fimian.
Jerry Connolly is no pragmatic moderate, Kojo. He has voted with Nancy Pelosi 97% of the time. That's 1,940 out of 2,000 votes. He says he's fiscally responsible. He's not. Based on the spending he's voted for, he's not a tax cutter. He's voted for $670 billion in new taxes, and he actually calls himself a deficit hawk. Yet the federal deficit exploded in 1 year to $1.4 trillion, 40% of the budget. He is not who he says he is, and this is a typical politician. He wants you to believe an alternate reality exists, that he is something he's not. If you think things are fine the way they're going, Connolly's your guy. But if you know that they're not, as I do, and you want this economy to grow and have someone in this seat who knows how to create jobs and grow the economy, I'm your guy. If you think $30,000 debt that each newborn comes into the world with is an unfortunate reality, as Mr. Connolly would have you think, or if you know, as I do, that it's an unconscionable moral wrong that we're visiting upon our children, then I'm your guy. Mr. Connolly can't
10
fix these
seconds.
problems. He has never created a job. He doesn't know how to create a job. I've created hunters, and that is what we need today.
Tom Sherwood, you have 30 seconds for your closing statement.
My closing statement is that, I love democracy, and I wish we had it in the District of Columbia, and that people should make sure they vote on November
I got to
2nd.
say this. We got this email from Marta in Vienna, Virginia. I don't trust Mr. Connolly with my wallet, but I fear Mr. Finian's latent theocratic tendencies. Fortunately, there's a libertarian in that race who I can vote for. I encourage those who feel like me to vote David Dotson. Thank you all for listening. Go out and vote on Tuesday. I'm Kojo Nandi.